Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a single stage 2-stroke snow thrower. This one's an MTD. It's got a little Tecumseh 2-stroke engine in it. It's been sitting for quite a while. So we're going to go over it and see what we can do. This is going to be a resale project. For sure we're going to have to pull the carburetor off. Especially being a 2-stroke. Over time the gasoline evaporates out of here and leaves the oil residue in there and gums everything up. I've already pulled the pull cord. It does pull over. It's not seized. It does have compression. I've already tried the electric starter. It works pretty good. So that'll crank over real nice. We're going to see how hard it is to pull this cover off, because it looks like there may be some grass or maybe a mouse nest up in there. This is the build date is 12th month of 1982, so it's an oldie, but overall it appears to be in pretty decent shape. It's got a little dent here in the scraper, so we'll just have to push that down a little bit, get a little bit of a better even scrape along the bottom here. I'm going to pull the wheels off. They're squeaky. We're going to lube them up. We're going to pull this cover off. We're going to check the belt in there. That's the belt that connects the engine crankcase to the auger. The primer works. That's good. Don't have to replace it. This little cover comes from this hole here. It's the spark plug inspection cover. We're going to pull the plug out. We're going to have a look at it. I did pull the fuel cap off. It is empty. There's no fuel in it. It doesn't smell horrible in there. It smells like stale gas, but it's not real bad. And I don't think there's any fuel in it. There's nothing at all in that tank. So it works. It seems to be okay. We're going to see how we can get it to throw snow. There's nothing on the ground right now, but we'll get an attempt at it anyways down the road. The belts, the belting here, the paddles, which are replaceable as they wear, they actually, it's important that they're in good shape, because that's what actually pulls the unit along. You push up on the handle and it pulls the unit along. That's because it's not self-propelled. These show a little bit of wear, but they're not worn out. They're not crazy bad, so that should still be okay. Yeah, so we're gonna dive in and see what we can do. I think that handle there runs a cable that comes down here and engages the drive. I think the cable's seized. It does move, but I think it's hung up. I think it's kind of applied in the on position a little bit. So let me get some tools gathered, some benches cleared so we got room to work. We'll get you guys in a stand, and we'll see what we can get going on here. Okay, we're going to get started by pulling the carburetor off. We're going to take it to the bench, tear it down so we can get it in the sonic cleaner and get that working. I think the next step after that is we'll pull the belt cover off and have a look. It's a bit of a test. It's the first time I shot video with my furnace going. It's about 5 degrees Celsius here. It's not overly cold, but it is quite damp outside. There's no snow on the ground right now, but I do have my furnace going. I've got a house furnace installed, running on natural gas. So inlet and outlet pipes are all run outside, so we're safe, we're good. But just knocks the edge off in here. The garage is not insulated, so the furnace does run on and off quite a bit. But that's another project. I might insulate it. I might tear it down and build something else. We're not sure yet. Anyways, let's get into this. Little access plate here we can pop off. That'll allow us to get to the mounting bolts for the carburetor. That's those four. Let's get that hose off of there. Going to be 2 hoses. The one's going to be a fuel line. It's as hard as a rock. I might end up replacing that. Oh yeah, it's pretty hard. It's pretty firm. The other one is going to be a smaller little hose up the top of the carburetor here, and that's going to be the primer hose. Reach up in there with some needle nose and let me get it pull off this. There we go. That's in good shape. It's not hardened up, so that should be all right. Next is going to be a couple of Phillips screws. Phillips, no, Torx. Torx screws hold that carburetor on. No nuts are behind, they thread directly into the aluminum of the engine. Not very easy to get to either. Well, this one is going to give us some grief. Might have to put a bit in there and crack it loose with a wrench. T25, probably 27. Nope, 25. Let's see if we can get that to fit in there. Let's see if we can get all of our fingers in there. Nope, I'm going to have to figure something else out with that. Hold tight. Alright, got it figured out. It's not a Torx at all. It's an Allen. It's 5/32 Allen. 4mm works. So I took I only had one 5/32 Allen key. But I got a few different 4mm, so I modified this one. I shortened. Come on, focus. Where are we? There we are. So I shortened it. It was actually about that long. Took about a ½ inch off it. And now it just barely gets in there. So I got this screw all the way out, and it allowed me to tilt the carb, twist it just enough that I can get in there and get slow progress. One flat at a time. So this is working. Another tool that's going to end up in the toolbox is a modified tool. Of course, when you need it again, you'll never find it, and you end up cutting another one. But anyways, once this screw is out, we've already got our hoses off, so this one, all we need to do is disconnect the governor linkage. Should just be one rod with a little spring on it, and then we should be able to get this carburetor out on a bench, get it torn down, drop it in the sonic cleaner, give her a bath, and while it's doing its thing in the sonic cleaner, we can look at some other stuff on the blower. Let's see if I got enough tilt there. Yep, got enough tilt now. I can get that screw out a little faster. That's not a nice place to get at, actually. Screw is out. Well, it's disconnected anyways. I don't even know if I can get it all the way out. Maybe. Okay, so there's a gasket here. There's a spacer. Another gasket underneath it. I don't have new gaskets. I could always make them. They're just paper gaskets, but I'd rather not have to. So we're going to take a quick picture with the phone for the orientation of the... Actually, no, we don't need to. It's only one little hole. It can only go in one spot. We can also drop the spacer way down there. There's a little spring around this rod. We need to remove that carefully. We don't want to stretch it or adjust its tension. Will give you governor problems. Hunting idle. Or insufficient speed. Pair of pliers. Come on now. Okay, the spring is off. Rod pops out. I'm just going to leave it right there. Strange. So this is the orientation of the carburetor when it's in use, and that is the air intake. It's vertical. It's a snowblower, so there's no air filter on it. But yeah, it's got a case of the crusties. If you can see down in there, let's get a light on maybe. There we go. Crusties. So we'll get this stripped down, put it in the sonic cleaner, and we'll get you set up on a bench. To get the strip down, we'll dunk it in the cleaner and then carry on with the rest of the project. Alright, I didn't take video of taking it apart, but this is the mess that I found when I did get it apart. So that's the inside of the carburetor. That is our needle seat. It's full of crud. So I'm going to, well, after it goes through the sonic cleaner, I'll put a single-ended Q-tip in the drill, and I'll put a little bit of valve lapping compound on it. Just give it a little spin in there. Oh, that's a rubber seat. Can't do that. I'll probably end up pulling that seat out. A rubber seat. I'll pull it out and clean it and then put it back in. This is a fixed. This is fixed. It won't come out. So I'm going to leave that in there. Actually, that looks like rubber too. It might be. I'll stick a probe down there and check it. We got a bunch of rust and garbage in there. This is the. It was just water that came out. It's not even gas. It was, the float bowl was full of water. The float is dirty, but I don't hear any liquid in it, so that's probably going to be okay. There's our bowl nut, which is also the main jet. There's holes all over. There's a hole on the side here, and one on the opposite side, and there's a little tiny hole, if you can see it, maybe, at the top of the threads there. There's a little tiny hole. They always get plugged up. But all this fancy stuff is going to go in the sonic cleaner. We'll put that in there. We'll put our needle in there. Everything else I think is good to go the way it is. We'll just drop everything in. See what happens. We'll drop that in there too. Let that roll around and get cleaned up. Gaskets I took off. I saved them. This little gasket was on the inlet side, where the air inlet was. There's really no need for a gasket there, but there's one there. If there had been little ports or holes or anything in this face of the carburetor, it may be important to have that gasket there, but there's nothing on this carburetor in that location, so the gasket's not required. So all I'm saying is if I had broken the gasket, I wouldn't have lost any sleep over it. Alright, I'm going to get this stuff in this bath and then move on to the something else on the blower. Okay, so the carburetor's in its bath. Let's pull this cover off and have a look underneath. See what we can see. Another one there. Okay, there goes an Allen key. Alright, what do we see in here besides spider webs? There's the actuator. Huh. Belt's actually on upside down. It's flipped over. The V is not in the correct position. I don't know how that happened. Could be somebody just installed it improperly. Let's see if I can get it flipped over there easy. Yeah. It's a little worn. It might not be the right belt. that's alright. Hopefully it stays like that. So when you squeeze the handle at the top, puts tension on that belt. When you let go, it should idle. A little bit of rust in the pulley. That should wear off. We'll see. It might be alright. Worst case scenario, I'll put a $10 belt on there. See what happens. It doesn't look too bad. Put the cover back on and we can move on. There's multiple bolts in one cover. I like to at least start them all. That way you know everything's going to line up. Okay, that's that. Let's see what we can do with the cover there. Pull the fuel cap off and blow through this end. Just make sure it's clear. It is. It's perfectly fine. We'll get you set up on the other side of the machine here in the stand. Wow, there's a bolt on the top. Might be a bit of a pain to get to. One back here. We'll work away at it. See what happens. I want to get that cover off to make sure there's no critters in it. I don't think there is. The cooling fins are clear. I'll at least have a look. Hold on. Okay, so I've got the bolts out of the cover here, front cover. One here, one under there, one in the back just around here, and there's one at the very top. The one at the very top is a pain in the butt. There's no access to it from the top of the console, but I did get it I managed to get it loose enough with a wrench that I can peel the cover back and look inside there. We'll light that up. That's going to be hard for you to see. Camera's probably not going to pick it up, but all I see in there is cooling fins. I don't see any rodents or any other stuff laying around in there, so well, it looks pretty good. I don't think we're going to have an issue with anything in there. So I'm just going to button that back up. And we'll get the carb out of its bath and we'll start putting that together. Okay, so I got that cover bolted back on. Before we get too crazy here rebuilding the carb and everything, I had a quick look down inside the intake there. There's no scratches on the piston on this side. I'm not pulling the other side apart. I'm not gonna pull them off and check for scratches. It appears to have decent compression. But what we should do is check for spark before we go too far with everything else. So what I did was I opened the access hatch, I pulled the plug out. Wasn't terrible. Wire brushed it, set it at 30 thou. That's the spec it's supposed to be. I found a manual online for this engine. So I set it to 30. I've got my spark tester in here. I don't want to pull the cord because it's sitting up on a bench here, so I don't want it to be flopping around. So we're just going to hit the electric start and see if we got a spark. Make sure the key is in the on position. Ready? Yep, I'm seeing spark. That's good. Okay, that's one mystery solved. We don't have a problem with that, so let's get to the carburetor. Alright guys, so we've got the carburetor out of its soup. That's much better than it was. A little bit of rust underneath that plug there. Underneath this area here is where the primer, basically your primer bulb connects under this plate here. You got to make sure all that junk is cleared out of there. The seat where the where that rubber seat goes into looks pretty good, so we're not gonna have to mess with that too much. Let's have a look at our jets here. The main one is clear. Let's see if we can see it. You can see right through there. You can see the blue shop towel underneath it. And that little microscopic one, I'm not going to be able to see that. I've got these. These are actually These are guitar strings. Well, we got a little tiny fine one here. I'm just going to poke it in that hole, make sure that it's going through. And it does. That's nice. That's good. Man, those ultrasonic cleaners do a good job. Another hole straight down the center here. Make sure I can see through it. Yep, that's all good. A little twist. That's good. Still nothing in our float. So that's alright. That cleaned up a little bit. I don't want any sticky residue on there. I don't want it to stick in the bottom of the bowl, so I'll just give it a little bit of a brush. Make sure that it's not sticky down there. Because if the float sinks to the bottom and sits on the bottom of the float bowl, it can actually stick there. So the next time you put fuel in it, it'll just start to overflow everywhere. Because the needle can't shut it off. Because the float's not coming up. So that's good. Alright, it's pretty simple, straightforward carburetor. Get our little rubber seat. I use a carburetor cleaner in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it's pretty strong. It works really, really good on carburetors. The only thing is when you take it out of that, oh, and it reeks. It's very potent. So when you take it out of there, it doesn't evaporate very easily. So I'll use compressed air to blow most of the cleaner off, and then what I'll do is I'll grab some brake clean and just give it a little overall spray, and that basically just dries up the carb cleaner off the carburetor. Okay, so the seat's in. The seat only goes in one way. If you look at the top side, it's pretty well flat. This side is pretty well flat. The bottom, when you go to install it, it's got a ring. It looks like a ring in it, or a line all the way around it, and that's the side that goes into the body of the carburetor. That's in. Here's our pin. This is just a little Scotch-Brite scrubby. Just make sure that it's not gummy or not sticky in any way. It's alright. So let's get our float in there. Set the needle on. The needle went in the ultrasonic cleaner, so it's pretty clean. It looks good. There's no junk around it. A little pointed end where it goes down and sits on that rubber seat. Looks okay. Moving nice and free. Sometimes the needle actually gets bound up in the bore where it goes up and down. A little tiny spring here. It could be because it's a two-stroke carb, or because it sits on an angle a little bit. It was so dirty I couldn't tell which way it came out, which means I also can't tell which way it goes in. I'm going to leave it out. I've never seen one in there before, in one of these carburetors. I mean, I don't do this for a living, so I haven't seen millions of these things. I've seen several, lots, but I'm going to say if something happens and it doesn't run right, then I'll worry about the spring. Let's check our float level. The needle come off, the little clip come off the needle. There we go. It's back in its home now. Get in there. Okay. Float level. Looks pretty good. I want to keep it the float level with the base of the body of the carburetor. That's that. Notice that the bowl has a bump in it. That is the side. The deepest part of the bowl goes at the farthest end of the float. So where the float pivots, it goes on the shallow end. Do have our gasket. The original one is still in good shape. I'm just going to make sure that there's no crusties on it. Pull it through the... definitely didn't want to put this in the ultrasonic cleaner, because they swell up about 4 times their normal size and you can never get it back in. Still nice and pliable. It'll be good for this application. That's on there. Make sure our float pin is still centered. Looks a-okay. Shallow end of the bowl goes on the pin side. Little gasket. This little gasket was around the bowl nut. The threads are a little boogered. Somebody's been in there before. Don't want to go too crazy tight with this. It's got to be snug though. There we go, snug. We hear the float. Yep, let's test it. I'm gonna blow air in here. In this orientation, the carburetor should allow fuel into the bowl. When I flip it upside down and blow again, it should stop the fuel from going in. That's allowing fuel, and that's preventing fuel, so we're good. Hope for the best. We'll try her. Let's throw it on there and see what happens. Give this a little bit of a scrape, get some of that old gasket off of there. I'm going to reuse this one, I think. Yeah, if I end up with a vacuum leak, we'll make a new one. Let's get you reoriented and get you a vision on the back of the engine again. Okay, I didn't shoot any footage of getting that carburetor on there. Man, it was that was interesting. The rods kept trying to fall off, the governor rod, all the linkage. It wasn't fun. Wouldn't have made for a good video. Let's just finish buttoning this up. I do have the 2 carburetor mounts tight. We'll put that little air inlet scoop, ram air if you want to call it ram air. Clean the debris out of it. A little bit of crusties that were in there. That's good. Drop that unnecessary gasket on there. One screw. Two screws. Okay, so that's a full choke position. Now, we may have a bit of an interesting time with this. So that does 2 things. So it closes the plate for the choke, but it also pulls on the governor. Now, sometime over the years, somebody's put a piece of mechanics wire across this throttle lever to the throttle plate. So I'm not sure if this is going to scream wildly out of control or if it's going to run too slow, and I don't know. But we're going to have to find that out, figure it out when we get to there. Let's pop that back on there. I guess I don't have to. If I got to get underneath here and mess with it again, I'll just have to take it off. Let's get the driver. Actually, can I see in there? Leave that off for a sec. I gotta get the fuel lines hooked up, and leaving it off will allow me a little more light. So let's get that primer. The primer just pops in there, a couple of friction tabs there. Thread it through its hole. Pop it back on. Up inside. Onto its appropriate fitting. Can hear it inside there, that's good. This fuel line is a little stiff, but it's not cracked or anything. I'm just going to leave it for now. Slide that on there. A little spring clip on. That's good. That's on. We'll leave that air filter or the air inlet cover off for now in case I got to get in there. I might need to adjust this little piece of wire, so I don't know. So what I did was while I had it flipped up like this, I squirted some spray grease down in there onto the spot for the chute here. Goes through a rubber grommet, it sounds like. Yeah, it's a little squeaky. Let's get a little bit of WD-40 on that. Stop the squeakage. Maybe. Nope, doesn't matter. It moves nice and free, so that's alright. That's fine. That ain't gonna hurt nothing. Oh, there's another one here with a rubber grommet. Look at that, silent. Beautiful. So I'm gonna put it on the. Well, actually, while we have it up here, let's get this axle out of here and get it oiled up, greased up. 1 9/16 wrenches. It's either 1 9/16 and 1/2, or is it? That's 9/16. That's 9/16. Doesn't really matter which end comes out. Oh, yeah. It matters if one comes out. Get the impact driver on there. That might help it. Shock it loose a little bit. Yep. This side came out. That's fine. So on the end here we have nothing. No washer, no nothing. No washer. A little bit of rust on the shaft under the wheel. So I'll buzz that down on the wire wheel on the bench grinder. Put some grease in there. Washer there. This whole unit should slide right out. Maybe. Maybe not. I think it's supposed to, but the end of the shaft is a little mushroom, so. See if we can convince it. Yeah. A little convincing. There we go. So this is where the wheel rides on that rust there. You can see it's shiny where it goes through the body of the unit here. The rust on this side, so just gonna take it over the bench grinder and buzz that off with a wire wheel. We'll get some grease on it, and I'll put some lithium grease on it, and we'll get it back together. Hold on. Okay, so I got the shaft buzzed down on the wire wheel. Got the lithium grease in there. White lithium grease is not affected by temperature. It doesn't get all real thick and viscous, so just put a little bit of grease on there. I'll slide this back a little bit, get some grease where it goes through the body. Perfect. Good enough. one washer. The wheel on there. That goes on a lot better. Nice. Get the bolt at the other end. Good enough. That's a lot better. Okay, we're gonna get some premix figured out for this little guy. Throw it down on the ground and see what happens. Hope for the best. You know what I'm gonna do before that? Before we do that, I'm going to cut this line here. Are you looking where I'm looking? I'm going to cut this line here. I'm going to put a fuel shutoff valve in it. Because I can. I have them in stock. I go through a lot of them. Okay. Usually buy them in bags of 5 or so, 5 or 10. It's just 1/4 inch line, these are 1/4 inch valves. The idea behind this is when you're done using this and it's not going to be used for a while, what you would do is you would shut the valve off and continue to run the engine until it runs out of fuel, and that makes sure that the float bowl is drained. You don't have old gas sitting in there. Oh yeah. I'm going to be changing that hose sooner than I thought. Oh, there we go. We can get that wiggled in there. Okay, that's in there. Off, on. Good. That should do it. Okay, we'll leave it on because we're going to try and fire it. So let me get the unit down on the ground. We'll get some premix going, and we'll move on to the next scene. Here's some interesting information here. I was going to put some 2-stroke in here, but this caught my eye. It tells you what type of oil to use. NMMA TCW2 or TCW3. That is not standard 2-stroke oil. There's a difference. There is 2-cycle engine oil. This happens to be a Motormaster brand. 2-cycle engine oil is what you're going to use in your weed whacker, chainsaw, anything you're going to use in the summer, yard work, that type of thing. TCW3 oil is actually outboard motor oil. See, TCW3, outboard engine oil. If you look at the back of this 2-cycle oil, down here it says warning, not for use in 4-cycle engines or TCW3 applications. Well, we have a TCW3 application. Now, the difference between these is these engines run hotter than these engines. Outboard engines usually run rather cool. So this oil is going to behave different at low temperature than this one will. At low temperature, this oil may not burn properly. Because it needs a higher temperature to burn, it may not burn completely. I'm going to give you grief in an application that's supposed to use TCW3. This outboard motor oil burns at a lower temperature, and that's what we're going to be putting into this. Luckily for me, I still had some premix for my outboards. So I put a little splash in there, and I got the electric starter hooked up. Get you back in the stand here, and let's see what happens. Get you situated here. Fuel tap is on. See, can you see? Yeah, you can see. Primer. Fuel drips, that's fine. Choke, let's see. Oh, key on. Well, it's pretty smoky in here now. I'm going to open the garage door in a sec, but that fired up pretty good, actually. It runs alright. The RPM sounds good. I think it'll be alright. Now, like I said, this is going to be a resale piece. I bought a pickup truck load of stuff. Showed up, and the guy had all kinds of stuff he wanted to get rid of, so I gave him a price on what I was willing to pay for everything, and he said, yeah, sure, whatever. And he gave me a hand, loaded it all up. I ended up with like 4 push mowers and this thing, and it's like a weed whacker, but it's on a 3-wheeled cart, so it's like a push weed whacker. I don't know, I forget what else I got with it, but yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. These go for a couple $100 in the used market. I'll clean it up, make sure everything's golden. You can see that when I tilted the handle up, it wanted to scoot across the floor. I don't want to do that too much because I don't want to wear those paddles, but it does what it's supposed to do. That's how they propel themselves. They dig themselves through the snow. So, yeah, it works all right. I think it might be okay. Whoa, smoky. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining me on this one. It wasn't overly long. Got a few parts to it and to this video. Made a couple of different sections of video, different views. I'll put that cover back on over the carburetor. It's not going to change the way it runs. It's not like most other things where if it has an air filter, it actually changes the way it runs. So, I'm going to open that door. It's getting pretty thick in here. So, again, thanks for joining me. A neat little project. I can't say I've actually worked on one of these before. Not that I remember, anyways. If you like this video, please don't forget to click the like button. Give me a thumbs up. It encourages me to make more videos. If you like, you can subscribe. Check out my other videos. I try to get an upload every week. If you do subscribe, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified when I do updates, or not updates, but new videos. Sometimes they're part 2s, sometimes part 3s, depending on how much I have into a video. Still got a few ride mowers to look at, a couple of more push mowers. We're going to get that funny 3-wheeled weed whacker in here at some point. But that's for another video. Thanks again, guys. Take care, and we will see you in the next one.